This week's channel message from the angels is about the new state of consciousness that we are attaining, that humanity is working towards. And they're telling us what it's going to be like. So you guys know that over the past several weeks, we've been getting lots of messages about what this state of consciousness is, about how we're experiencing it, about how we're meant to step into it. Today, they're giving us the encouraging information about what it is we have to look forward to, how we're going to experience it, and what it's going to feel like. So anyways, welcome back to my channel, you guys. Thank you so much for joining me. And for those of you who are new, my name is Ann Tucker. I am a trance channel. And I channel from the angelic realm. And by trance, I mean I go into a deep meditative state. I raise my awareness up as high as I could go. And then I stretch a little higher and I connect. And then the messages and the healing comes through. And I share that with you here on YouTube. And over the last many weeks, really for the last couple of years, the angels have been working with us, giving us weekly messages every Friday about our ascension, about the ascension of humanity. And they've been talking to us about the need to be in a state of allowing, to let go of control, how to move into a state of unity and oneness with everyone else, and how to hold that energy regardless of whether we are alone and with our trusted friends or whether we're out in the world. So anyways, it's been incredibly helpful information. I think this message definitely helps to move that message forward, to help to move us forward, knowing what it is that we are going to be experiencing and helping us to step into that. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoy the message. And if you do, please do like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks so much. All right, so here is the message. Into the bliss, the abyss of what you are, we instill in your hearts now a thought of surrender. To release the self from your own understanding. The power of this time unfolding is to be lightened from within. To let the unfolding of this now time draw you further, deeper into what you are, your own blooming. The feeling of this as you are turning over, under, rethinking, is to be that self aligned with Source. To be the one you are in quiet times alone. To let your Source light underneath the very echoes of your beginnings. To let them shudder and release and be that lightning bolt that's piercing, that removes the unjust moments from your conscious understanding. Be the self that encounters what is new, is open and receptive. As your speaking terms allow, see what you are from within you and without, on all sides. Paramount to this understanding what is new is your perspective unfolding differently. To see how you are now within the harness of your awareness, within that blanket of comprehension, ancestral and limiting. And as we pass through the fold of this next generative existence, you will become a newly shaded beginning, a next emptying and reassigning of your awareness to see it differently, to perceive what is now unfolding from perspectives not your own, to harness the belonging that is available to you now, to enter into the agreement of understanding that is shared. To be the one that employs their own harness on perspective limits the degree to which they have been instrumental in forming what is about to be encountered. Let the history and knowledge of all that surrounds the self be included. Be inclusive in your design of this life as you do live it. Let this understanding of what you are broaden and extend beyond the limitation of your physical being. To see the self as you are within the harness of love for one another. Yes, this encountering stretches and permeates your thinking. It encounters what you are now, a hesitant energy. A desire to remain as you are, safe among yourselves within your own helmet for safekeeping. To protect oneself from that external dredge through understanding. For it is hardship to re-encounter all things differently. It is painful to the suppositions upon which your life is made. It takes apart the conquered notions of what is true and positive and makes these unfold differently. And this is challenging. We wish for the self now to encounter how this happens when fruitful within humanity. when others abound within the time and space of your reality, when you see them as you are, encountered no differently, when their feelings and justifications arrive like the tide with each new day forming, and you see this from the vantage point of all things in understanding, when you see them as they are, the construction of this now moment, you begin to live it fully. To see things as nothing was when you are empty in the silence of your own solitude. Instead, you rise into the beginning of the hive of belonging, and from here the golden moments unfurl. There is tenderness and longing to be a soul who is fruitful, who is manipulating time for their own benefit, who feels the self an instrument, a manager who controls their outcome. But these passages are not well-serving in these times coming. What arrives as you rise above these temperamental constructs and begin to focus on the merging of your design with others, you see the life and its unfurling as one of welcome opportunity, as one of instances of love abounding, where all things may be serving, where all encounters are now deemed worthy, where each instant that arrives is full of compassion, where your eyes no longer seek for a placement for yourself where you are deserving. Instead, you find yourself empty of those thoughts of being unworthy and encounter the self differently, as one who rises among the many and feels their place in perpetuity, a sense of self as connected, as one with everyone. In this instance and in this space, the arrival of the now comes for the comfort and the freedom of all beings who are present. There is within the flavor of each moment a difference for the ones who are living. There is in this incarnated state the positive and the negative with which you are learning, but there is also objectivity. There is absence and rejoining. And from the state above in heavenly surrender, you feel this overture of belonging and wish for no more consequence than to be the one who is enraptured with the positive embrace of everyone. We wish to inform you now of these essences that surround you, of the life and times that are unraveling, and how they unfurl differently from what was. How in the times that are coming, there are not the same junctures in your mind which are matching, which you can call upon the history. That's paused now. We feel within your hearts the positive embrace of what is happening. All right, let that one sink in for a minute. So as you guys are listening, I think it's awesome, and I love, and thank you guys all for the feedback back when we first started doing this new format, letting me know like this was something everybody craved, to have the message whole first. And I think it's so helpful. I'm loving doing this way, because I feel like you guys can just sit in the frequencies and feel it first and let the body absorb it first, and then we go back and look at it, right? And welcome you guys to join in the middle there. Hey, Teresa, great to see you. And for those of you who are joining for the first time, welcome, who are joining us live. It's great to have you guys here. So let's go ahead and break it down and talk about the different paragraphs, because there is, of course, a lot in the message. So, and this message, like I said, I'm calling this one What It Will Be Like. And it's really about them trying to help us to be compassionate for the difficulty of this shift in consciousness. Like, it really is a shift in our way of being, that it helps if we're aware of it, because then we can step in it faster. But it's not an easy thing. It's not an easy thing to change how you think and how you feel about everything. That's not easy. So I think they're being really compassionate, and then they're trying to tell us what it's going to be like. So it's just a little bit of an encouragement, like, hey, this is what you have to look forward to. This is going to be great. Like, this is going to be a good thing. You want to go through the difficulties, because what's on the other side is so much better. So they're trying to give us a little taste of that in this message. And you're saying it feels like the breaking down is much more cerebral. The full reading is just letting it settle in. Yeah, I totally agree. And it is, the breaking down it is more like it's helping us with our awareness. And that's super important. Like, the feeling it is huge, but also getting the brain on board, getting our understanding, because so much of what we're doing here is understanding ourselves, right? So this being conscious through this ascension then helps the rest of the universe participate, because we are learning through the process. So the more aware we are, the more we are gleaning from the experience. So it really gets us in every direction. It's a really good thing in every way. Yeah. And you're saying, seems like we're maybe moving into a new phase. Yeah, I would definitely say so. I would definitely feel like all of the messages they've been giving us recently are trying to prepare us, trying to encourage us. And that is to be the way showers, to step into this, to be aware that the energies are here, to be aware that this is available, and try starting now, not only to start reshaping our consciousness, to be more inclusive, to be, and they said it several messages ago, they called it being in that contemplative state. When we go into the state of our own, when we're thinking about ourselves, when we're considering in that moment of silence, that we are now joined by other people who are in the same state of readiness. So starting to tap into that union with others. And they're talking about that here again. The other big thing is starting to get used to holding our frequency when we are out in the world and being with others, not starting to merge, but start. So the two things are really trying to get us to work on so that we can do our work in the world, so that we can hold the frequency, so we can be the light, so that we can help others. As it becomes, right now we have the choice to do this, but pretty soon down the road, it won't be a choice. It'll be like, and here it is. So right now we have the chance to hold that, to embody that, and make it easier for others. Yeah, okay. So let's break it down. So in the first paragraph, they say, into the bliss, the abyss of what you are. Love that. We instill into your hearts now a thought of surrender. And I love that, the bliss, into the bliss and the abyss of what you are. So it is like the depth of who you are is profound and deep and endless, the abyss, right? And it is also the bliss. Like that is, you are a beautiful, amazing creature, like endlessly fascinating. So awesome. They say, we instill in your hearts now a thought of surrender. And they mean surrendering the way we were, right? To release the self from your own understanding. And this is going to be the big thing of the message. This is all about getting ready to shift how we perceive the world. So we have to release our understanding of everything as we have previously thought it to be. So they're talking about in this message, it's about shifting our perspective from looking at everything through our experience, the way we've been, the way our life has unfolded, and start to incorporate into our perspective the perspectives of everybody else. So how they have been wounded, how they have experienced their life, all of the different things. We're trying to start to have almost like a prism mind where we can see things from everyone's perspective. And that is really different, really, really, really different. So we have to, in order to do that, we have to release first our attachment to our own understanding. So they're saying, release the self from your own understanding. The power of this time unfolding is to be lightened from within, to let the unfolding of this now time draw you further deeper into what you are, your own blooming. So, and this is interesting, this is part of it, is the deeper acceptance of our own truth, which is that we are one with everything, right? So next paragraph. This next paragraph is about what it is to be lightened from within. So they're saying this is the power of this time unfolding is to be lightened from within. What is that? That's what they're going to tell us in this next paragraph. They say, the feeling of this as you are turning over, under, rethinking what it is to be that self aligned with source, to be the one you are in quiet times alone, to let your source light underneath the very echoes of your beginning. So, sorry, I made my notes here and it's really hard to read them. Okay. So it is about releasing our wounds that we've had since birth. So it is the feeling of this as you are turning over, under, rethinking. So this is literally as we are going through this contemplative time, learning about ourselves, looking at ourselves more deeply, trying to figure out who we are and heal ourselves. To be that self, and when we're in that deep state, when we are aligned with source, when we are in our quiet place, aligned with source, to be the one you are in quiet times alone. So this is where we start to become lit from within, right? We align with source, we understand ourselves, we connect, we are lit from within, right? And then we let the source light underneath the very echoes of our beginning. So imagine that light is coming in and we're letting it work its way through all the dark crevices where we hide our deepest wounds, the really, really tough stuff that we got from the very beginning. So the beginning of this life, the beginning of our soul, like all the stuff, right? We let it get lit up from inside. We let that light in, to let them, meaning the wounds, meaning the stuff that things underneath, let them shudder and release. I love that. And be that lightning bolt that's piercing, that removes the unjust moments from your conscious understanding. So in other words, as we release our deepest wounding, then we are free to open up our perspective of right and wrong, where we are in judgment of what is true and what is not true, what is right, what should be, all the things that inform our perspective. So our healing, letting go of our wounding, then helps us to open up our minds and allows us to see things not from the chip on our shoulder or from the truths that we've discovered. And think about, some of those truths are not great for us, right? Like they're ready to be released, the ways that we have seen the world. And this speaks to the polarity that we've been going through in the world, where there are sides, right? Where this person is so insistent that their way is right and this way is right, when in fact, everybody is speaking from their own truth. And we need to get to a place where we see it from everyone's perspective. But to do that first, we have to get to that contemplative state, heal ourselves, let that light come into all the deepest crevices. And when we heal our deepest wounds, we open our minds and our perspective, and we become open to what's coming. And you're saying, currently experiencing that. Yeah. And bonjour, Amina. Hope you're having a great time in Paris. All right. And so that is the big thing. We need to remove the unjust moments from our conscious understanding. So the things that we perceive as unjust, and get to a place where everything is perceived from everyone's perspective. Yeah. Okay. Next paragraph here, they're talking about the shift. They're describing it as shift in perspective. So here they're going to go into this more deeply in this paragraph. They say, be the self that encounters what is new, is open and receptive. So here they're talking about, we've healed ourselves. Now we're trying to open our perspective. Be the self that encounters what is new, is open and receptive, open-minded. As your speaking terms allow, in other words, they're limited by our language, see what you are from within you and without on all sides. So they're saying there isn't really a great way in our language to describe what we're going to become, which makes sense because our language is governed by our experience. We haven't experienced this yet. So we're trying to get to a state where we see what we are from within ourselves, so our own perspective, as well as everyone else's perspectives on all sides. Paramount to this understanding what is new is your perspective unfolding differently. So it really is about the release of our old perspective. And this is the hard thing that we have to do. So they go on to say, to see how you are now within the harness of your awareness, within that blanket of comprehension, ancestral and limiting. And I love the choice words they have here, the harness, the blanket, like things that are repressing, that are holding us back, right? The harness holds us back, right? Harness is what says, okay, it's going to be defined within these limits, that you're going to harness it within your conscious awareness, which is informed by our wounds, right? So that is currently harnessing. So we're not able to see everybody else's perspective because we're looking at everything through our wounding, right? And then the blanket of comprehension, ancestral and limiting. So there's literally a huge blanket, like imagine it just stifling the whole thing, because we have all these, it's not only our own wounding from our own life, but it's the wounding from all of our past lives and all of our ancestors and all of our junk, our baggage, right? That's what they're talking about. And then they say here, they shift to say what's coming. They say, and as we pass through the fold of this next generative experience, so this next experience being a creator on the earth, you will become a newly shaded beginning, a next emptying and reassigning of your awareness. So what's interesting when they say that, a next emptying and reassigning of your awareness, makes me think we have been through this before, right? That there have been different stages of human evolution. And we've had to, in the past, go through periods where we have emptied out our perception, let go of our understandings of things, of our truths that we were really attached to. We've had to let go of those and reassign our awareness to a new way of seeing things. They say to see it differently, to perceive what is now unfolding from perspectives not your own. So this is the whole thing we're trying to get to. How do we see from the perspective of oneness with everyone? To harness the belonging that is available to you now, to enter into the agreement of understanding that is shared. So that's the goal, is to have a shared understanding that everyone agrees. It reminds me of, I used to love when I would read books, how there was always, everyone who was in the book was agreed who was the hero or the heroine and who was the bad person, right? Who was the bad guy or the bad woman, whatever. Who was the person who was the protagonist and the antagonist in the book, because the whole book is governed by one writer. The writer gets to decide who the good guy is and the bad guy is. So, and I used to love the clarity of that it was just like the way that the good guy would walk through life. The good guy was never misunderstood by the narrator, by the writer. The writer always saw the good guy as the good guy and would always perceive their motivations correctly and would always perceive them as the way they would want to be perceived, right? And I used to think that was such a great thing about a book, because life wasn't like that. Like, it was really easy in life to be perceived wrongly by someone who's looking at you through their wounding. So here, they're talking about, it's almost like we're all going to finally get into the same book. We get to enter into the agreement of understanding that is shared, where everyone has the same perspective, because we are inclusive of everyone's perspective. Yeah. And you say, rewrite the story. Here we are. Rewrite the story we have been telling ourselves based on past wounding. Yes, and that is what we're trying to do. We're trying to release that story. Exactly. And you think, I sure have felt rough. I bet, and I know that stinks. I'm sorry for that. And not fair at all. Not fair at all. So she's commenting that because her name is Karen, and the whole thing about Karen is just, it's really, really rough when that's your name. How do you deal with that? I'm sorry for that. And then you're saying, when you shake up a bottle of mustard to get the last teaspoon out, that is how I feel. Oh, that's good. Let's see. Hi, I will be eagerly watching today's replay. I'm so glad. Hey, Rebecca, great to see you. And Mary says, oh, if life could be so predictive and prescribed by a book. I know, right? Like, books that's why they're so relaxing. It's because there's only one perspective. And it's so easy. It seems so easy. But that, I think we take that as a lesson, that it seems so easy. And that is what we're moving into. We're moving into the feeling of shared perspective. And that is such a good thing. That's a really, really good thing. So going into the next paragraph. So this next paragraph is about how having that limited perspective in the past, how the way we've been, where we've seen things from our perspective of right and wrong and truth and all the things that we have learned and then apply to our life, how having that, then it is a limited perspective. Even if we think it's the right perspective, it's still a limited perspective, that has limited our impact as manifestors in the world. So they're saying, to be the one that employs their own harness on perspective limits the degree to which they have been instrumental in forming what is about to be encountered. Let the history and knowledge of all that surrounds the self be included. Be inclusive in your design of this life as you do live it. Let this understanding of what you are broaden and extend beyond the limitation of your physical being. And so I think this is super interesting, this idea that when we have a limited perspective, we have, and as they say it here, to be the one that employs their own harness on perspective. So when we are limited in our perspective to our own viewpoint, we limit the degree to which we are instrumental in the forming what is about to be encountered. So we limit the degree in which we can manifest. We limit the degree in which we impact as creators, because we only have the one perspective, and that one perspective is limiting. So what they're saying is that imagine like the world is full of potential, and we are only allowing in those potentials which are in alignment with our truth. And so all the rest of the substance of the earth and of reality is not considered or not allowed. So we limit the degree to which we can impact, because we are only allowing in those truths which are aligned with our beliefs. And that then if you can imagine how much if your belief is such a narrow slice of the pie, it may be 10%. So think about how much more broadening that could be to have this shared perspective. And they're going to go into it more and help us more understand what does that mean. Because you might think, well, I only want to allow the things in that are going to be for my highest and best, right? And I don't want to be experiencing things that are really, really negative. And what if that's what that means? And that's not what they're saying. But they'll go into it more in some of these upcoming paragraphs. But I think it's such an important point and such an interesting thing to think about. This next paragraph, they say, acknowledging that this is going to be hard and that it's stretching us. They say, to see the self as you are within the harness, part of the last paragraph, they say, To broaden and extend the self beyond the limitation of your physical being, to see the self as you are within the harness of love for one another. So this is what we're trying to move to. We're trying to move into the experience of ourselves as so connected that we are, the only thing that binds our experience is love. And I think that's the answer to what about, like, if I'm opening up my perspective and I'm not just limited to my own truth, how do I make sure I'm not letting in a bunch of stuff into my reality that I don't want? Then it's because of the fact, and remember they said before that when we go into that contemplative state, we are no longer alone. We are now joined by other people who are in readiness. And I think the readiness part of this is key. That the thing that then changes is we see the self as we are within the harness of love for one another. So the love is a harness, that it does limit our experience to things that are in the vibration of love. And so it broadens our perspective, and we are inclusive of everyone's perspective, but those perspectives are bound and contained within the overall perspective of love. So I think that's the key, that's the thing that makes it work. All right, so then they say, this encountering stretches and permeates your thinking. It encounters what you are now, a hesitant energy, a desire to remain as you are, safe among yourselves within your own helmet for safekeeping, to protect oneself from that external dredge through understanding. So they're acknowledging this is not easy for us to let go of what we have deemed true, because it has been a very hard-won prize. The things that we have gleaned and the ways that we live our lives in accordance with, like, these are the lessons we've learned. Think about how valuable those are to us. And they're basically saying, hey, we need you to toss those out now and start to see it totally differently. And that is not easy. And they say they feel the hesitation in us. And I love that they say, a desire to remain as you are, safe among yourselves within your own helmet for safekeeping. So it's like basically like you're going to put your hat on a limit. Like, I'm not going to open up my awareness and see everything. I'm just going to stay inside my little helmet and only see it from my way. And it's to protect ourselves from that external dredge through understanding. So there's a perspective that if we open ourselves up to what everybody else is thinking, what if we don't like it, right? But it gets us back to that idea that no, it's going to be held in love. So it's about being and joining and becoming love. And so it's a shift, but it's not a shift into the everythingness of all that's bad in the world. It's about allowing in the perspective of everyone else held within the container of love. Yeah. So it really is all about feeling safe and feel loved. Absolutely. Like, that is what it is, to feel safe and loved. So, all right. So the next paragraph here, they're saying, for it is hardship to re-encounter all things differently. It is painful to the suppositions upon which your life is made. It takes apart the conquered notions of what is true and positive and makes these unfold differently. And this is challenging. So this is basically what we were just saying, right? It takes apart the conquered notions. I love that, conquered notions, because it's like it reflects the fact that these are really hard won. The life lessons that you have figured out they are hard to get, and they're really valuable. So they're saying it takes them apart of what is true and positive and makes these unfold differently. Love that. Doesn't mean that they're gone. They unfold differently. So that is the key to remember here, is they're not saying that you lose all of your wisdom. They're saying that your wisdom is now understood from the perspective of everyone. So you still have your wisdom, you still have your learning, but you now don't use it as a limitation. You now use it in communion with everyone. Yeah. So, and it is, all right. So moving on, you're saying, my turtle shell keeping everyone out. Totally. You're saying that's why when we perceive the world as love being what is real, then we will feel much safer. Yes, 100%. Absolutely. And I know it's really hard for a lot of us to, especially because many of us were born into circumstances where maybe your growing up experience was not loving. You know, maybe you were born into families that didn't express love very easily. And so that idea of being held in the safety of love may be really hard to get to. And that's, I think, one of the reasons it's so important that we do our healing now, that we work on that we get to a space where we can feel safe and loved, where we have faith in that. Like, we need to be in that space mentally. And I know it's not easy, but it is possible. It's very possible. You're seeing from the two aspects of the two all the way around the 360 of you. Yes, the 360 degree perspective is what we're trying to get to. Challenging to take off your helmet off while you're still on the field playing the game. Yeah, that's true. That is very true. That's why I think they're working on us one little message at a time, one little bit at a time, helping us to understand this as we go. I think, yeah, to rip off the Band-Aid would not be easy. So it is. It's a little bit at a time. They're trying to help us to move towards this because it's a brand new skill set for us. Yeah. All right, so the next paragraph, this is now here, they're going to encourage us. They're going to tell us what it's going to be like. When we are able to do this, this is what we're heading towards, and this is why we want to do this. They're saying, we wish for the self now to encounter how this happens when fruitful within humanity. So saying this is what it's going to be like when you can do this successfully. They're saying, when others abound within the time and space of your reality, when you see them as you are, encountered no differently. So when you see everybody just like yourself, when you're seeing it from oneness, when their feelings and justifications arrive like the tide with each new day forming, and you see this from the vantage point of all things in understanding, when you see them as they are, the construction of this now moment, you begin to live it fully. So here they're saying that when we get to that space where we do share perspective with everyone, where we achieve this oneness bound in love, that we begin to experience the now moment, we experience life fully. And this gets back to what they were saying about that when we are in our separated perspective, it limits the degree that we are able to impact our world and manifest in the world. And they're saying here that it is same idea, but a different side of it is that when we do this, we'll be able to live the life much more fully. We'll see it more fully. We'll experience. It's sort of like, I see it almost like, you know how people talk about when they have near-death experiences and they cross over and they see, sometimes they will go through a landscape and they see colors, but it's nothing like colors on earth. That it's like with an incredible brightness and the vivid, more than they could have ever expected before. And I think it's going to be that shift in our expectations or experience of life, that it will become that much richer when we have this multifold perspective. They go on to say, you see things as nothing was when you are empty in the silence of your own solitude. In other words, nothing's the same. Everything will be, it's a shifted perspective, so it affects everything. They say, instead you rise into the beginning of the hive of belonging, and from here the golden moments unfurl. So, and I love that. So they're really saying this is extremely positive, what we're heading into. All right. The next paragraph, this one is about saying that, and this is interesting, that there's no more, when we get to this state of mind, there's no more insecurities of any kind. So we don't have the same wounding or fears about our belonging, about our worthiness. All of that is not a factor anymore. So here's what they say. They say, there is tenderness and longing to be a soul who is fruitful, who is manipulating time for their own benefit, who feels the self an instrument, a manager who controls their outcome. These are passages not well serving in these times coming. And so this is reflecting that idea that one of the ways that we manage our life right now is to reach for control. When we are unsure of something, when we're in our fear, the thing we try to do is grip on tighter and try to control what's happening. So control is our sort of our defense against the unknown and against our fear. And so then, they're saying, and I love how they describe it, that they don't say, hey, you guys are bad for doing this. They say there is tenderness and longing to be a soul who is fruitful. So like our desire is to have a good life, right? Our desire is to be something positive in the world. So they're recognizing that there's tenderness and longing for that to happen, to be something good, to be your best self. And they say, and part of that, the way we perceive it, is to be someone who's manipulating time for their own benefit, who's creating a life that's beneficial for them, and who feels the self an instrument. So there's somebody so we slip into a place where we go out of the heart and into the mind, who sees the body as an instrument, the mind who's controlling. So this is our wounding, what we do. So we go into the mind who is controlling, and the mind becomes the manager who controls their outcome. So what we want to do when we're in that state of fear is we want to rise up above everything where we can't feel it, we can't be hurt, and we want to be the sort of the driver on the ship, you know what I mean, like steering everything and manifesting and controlling and making it turn out the way that we want. And this is how we have tried to deal with reality when we have been limited to our own perspective and we've been stuck in duality, because duality and that shifting, that being alone, comes with a host of fears about our worthiness and our belonging and all the things, right? So they say these are passages not well serving in these times coming. So they're saying being in the state of control, trying to control what happens, isn't going to work in the new times coming. And they've said this in a bunch of other places, that basically, and this has to do with the where the feminine energy has been repressed and is now coming up, and we're going to have a balance between masculine and feminine energy. So being able to live in flow, being able to work with fluid energy is going to be much, and that means not controlling. It's going to be super important. And the ways of success in the past have been much more bound to a strictly masculine perspective. And it's been all about hard charging and, work hard, play hard, control, control, control. Can you, dissect your life into 15, segments of time and make sure each one is carefully planned? And, it's been about control. Control has been the pathway to success. And they're saying, not anymore. These are passages not well serving in these times coming. It's going to be different. That doesn't work anymore. So they're saying, what arrives as you rise above these temperamental constructs and begin to focus on the merging of your design with others, you see the life and its unfurling as one of welcome opportunity. So, and that's about flow, right? Being in flow is about letting things come to you, right? And it doesn't mean that you're not the decider anymore, because you are still the captain of your team. You're still the one who chooses, but it's about welcome opportunity. It's about stepping into things. It's much more ease, right? They say as one of instances of love abounding, and where all things may be serving, where all encounters are now deemed worthy, where each instant that arrives is full of compassion. So this is really a shift, and think about this as a shift of perspective, where you see life in its unfurling as of a welcome opportunity. So there is no bad news in this new shared perspective. There is nothing that's coming to you that you would look at and be like, oh man, I'm having a crummy day today, or oh, that's really bad luck. You would see everything as a welcome opportunity, that there's okay, I guess I'm running late this morning. It doesn't mean you're having a bad day. It means that there's, for some, whatever's unfolding from that point on, that you welcome that in and say, okay, well, I'm going to wait and see how this unfolds, because this is not what I planned. Let's see what happens. Let's see how this puts me into new experiences I wasn't expecting. It becomes a welcome opportunity where all encounters are now deemed worthy. So we're never in judgment of the moment. We're never labeling it a bad day. We're saying this is a worthy day. There was things in this day that were really good and valuable that I'm in gratitude for. Where each instant that arrives is full of compassion. So I love that. So this implies, how are we seen? How are we held in each moment that's coming, right? Held in compassion. So think about that as we are challenging ourselves. One of the things that's hard is when you put yourself out there and you feel rejection, or you put yourself out there, you feel challenged, you feel shut down, right? You feel wounded again. Maybe it lands right on your wounds. What if the instant that arrives is full of compassion? What if you feel that in each moment you are seen for your best self or for your most positive intention? And how much easier it would be to be your true self in that context, right? To be held in love. And they go on to say, where your eyes no longer seek for a placement for yourself where you are deserving. Instead, you find yourself empty of those thoughts of being unworthy and encounter the self differently, as one who rises among the many and feels their place in perpetuity. So it's really about releasing that core wound we all share of worthiness, of feeling worthy, and where we feel instead this sense of belonging that erases all of that, and how that would shift so many things, right? They say a sense of self as connected, as one with everyone. So they're really trying to spell it out for us. This is what we're heading into. This is why it's worth it. Worth giving up the truths that we are just so hard won, the ways we've learned to navigate our life, what is true for us, and to start to be willing to open that. It doesn't mean we lose those truths, because true is true, but it means that we start to see it differently, that we stop limiting our perspective. Yeah. And you're saying, this totally speaks to me. For example, for certain relationships in my life, I feel the need to stay connected constantly to make sure the relationship is secure. I thank you for sharing that, because that's vulnerable, and that I think so many people can relate to that. But in truth, it is safe when it is rooted in love, regardless of how often the communication is. That is beautiful. Yeah, really well said. So you also said, another person said, so letting go of the control is huge on this healing journey, and surrender 100%. Yes. Yeah. And it's going to be, that by itself is going to be a huge part of learning how to experience and work with these energies as they're changing around us. They're saying this is available to us now. We are just stepping into it little bit by little bit by little bit. But yes, the more that we can relinquish our control, the better it's going to be. Yeah. Next paragraph, and this next paragraph, they're telling us that we will feel comfortable and free. So this is what's coming up. They're saying, in this instance and in this space, the arrival of the now comes for the comfort and the freedom of all beings who are present. There is within the flavor of each moment a difference for the ones who are living. There is in this incarnated state the positive and the negative with which you are learning, but there is also objectivity. So this is really interesting. So they're saying, so the idea is to get to a space where we feel really super comfortable and really super free, like you would with your closest, most trusted people in your life, where you feel totally accepted as you are, comfortable and free. So that's going to be the experience of it. So then how do you go into life if you're no longer fearful or afraid that there's no place for you? Like, how do you go into things differently? And they're saying here that in this incarnated state, so this is about, you get to hold this feeling of being comfortable, being free while you're in the body, while you're alive. But they're saying that we're still going to be incarnated. We will still have the positive and the negative through which we are learning. So there's still going to be contrast in the world. It doesn't mean that all contrast goes away. We will still be living with contrast. But they say there is also objectivity. So this is the change, that we will no longer be limited to the one perspective of this is good and this is bad. Instead, we will belong to the objective state, where you said there is absence and there is joining. So we can be in the objective state, or we can join. We can join, there's absence and rejoining. So we can either be in our own perspective and also hold at the same time the perspective of the collective, of the higher state of mind. So we are still navigating and moving as your own identity, moving through the world, living with your truths, all of those things, but those truths are tempered by the belonging to the collective, where we have this broader spiritual perspective that belongs to the union, that is the truth of everyone. And that then informs our own knowledge and our own understanding. They say there's absence and rejoining. So from the state above in heavenly surrender, so this is that idea that we surrender to oneness, you feel this overture of belonging and wish for no more consequence than to be the one who is enraptured within or with the positive embrace of everyone. So they say it really takes away all the ways in terms of living in a world of contrast. One of the hardest things is that we always measure ourselves against everyone else. We define ourselves by everybody else. So we're trying to understand ourselves. How do we do that in the world of contrast with other people? And that creates a lot of negative feelings. Like, think about all the stuff you hear about people, teens who are, big in social media, and they see all these images and brings up a lot of really negative feelings about themselves. And it's all contrast and comparison, which is not a good feeling. And they're saying that we don't navigate it in the same way anymore, that we can live in a world of contrast, but we have the gift of objectivity that is right in there at the exact same time. So it's literally like having two perspectives. We know our unique perspective. We also know the spiritual perspective, which allows us to see it from this oneness. And they say that from that state above in heavenly surrender, when we surrender to the knowledge of oneness, from that love that we all share, they say you feel this overture of belonging. So we feel this sort of this, that there is no more being an outsider. There is no sense of being more or less than anybody. And that what's even more important about that is that you don't wish to be something other than what you are. You wish for no more consequence, so no more importance in the world, no more whatever it is that you thought was so important. We wish for no more than to be the one who is enraptured in the positive embrace of everyone. That all we want is to be in that energy, to be in that sense of belonging. And so we move through our life with a really different perspective. There's no more dissatisfaction with what we are. So it doesn't mean that all of us are suddenly going to become perfect. It means that we are imperfect and wonderful exactly as we are. And we see that from the collective. We see how the exact way that we are created is exactly what we're meant to be. And we have faith in the truth of that because we are able to see it from that enlightened perspective. So we release all of our junk, all of our negativity. Like, wow, right? I mean, that's kind of huge. Yeah. And you're saying hold space for universal truth. Yes, and that will be our, it's like I said, we don't lose our individuality, but we have access to the spiritual connection, to the spiritual wisdom, to this larger truth, which is amazing, absolutely amazing. All right, last paragraph, they say, we wish to inform you now of these essences that surround you. So big, they're saying this exists now. It's available to us to slip in and out of as we are ready to move. And that's kind of how this growth happens. It's not like all at once, like somebody flips a switch and you're like, I'm there. It's like a little bit and then you're down, a little bit more and then you're down, right? So it's like the more that you can come into it, be aware of it when you're there, and then notice it and hopefully have more and more and more of that experience. They say, so we wish to inform you now of these essences that surround you, of the life and times that are unraveling and how they unfurl differently from what was. How in these times that are coming, there are not the same junctures in your mind which are matching where you can call upon the history. So they're saying that so this is basically saying that, the word unprecedented that we keep getting, that this is unprecedented, that it is not the same junctures in your mind. So there's no way that we can pattern match what we're going to be going through with what we've experienced before, because we haven't experienced this before. So we cannot rely on our history to explain this. We have to be open and receptive and perceive something that is outside the box. And that's going to be one of the hardest parts about allowing this to happen. So it's really, that's why if you look back at the angel messages, 6 months ago, a year ago, maybe even 2 years ago, they were really harping on allow. Like it was like over almost every message was talking about allow. And it was so much about trying to, because we can't perceive these things. And so the messages have absolutely shifted. And they're now saying that these energies are here and we can perceive them. But it is so much about releasing our own perspective and our own limitations, the ways that, and our truth, the thing that seems so valuable, right? That we have to be willing, we have to be allowing, and it's about being open and receptive, and trying to get to that higher state of perception and awareness. So they say that's paused now, which is interesting. They don't say it's done. Like there is the hint that maybe we'll come back to that someday, but for right now, it's paused. We don't have that anymore. That idea of being able to look at what we're going to be going into and see, oh, I get it, because in the future we will know what it is. So it's paused for now because we have no experience with that, but in the future we will have had experience with that. So it's paused now. In the future we will be able to have that experience and look back on it and understand it. Then they say, we feel within your hearts the positive embrace of what is happening. So they're saying they know in our hearts, they can see into our hearts and they know we are ready for this. And that is what they're trying to tell us. So we are ready. So it's definitely, they are our biggest cheerleaders, and they're telling us, encouraging us, it's going to be great. They know it's hard. It's going to be great. It's worth doing, and they know we're ready. Yeah. Super cool, right? Saying beautiful, thank you. You're so welcome. I'm so glad you guys were able to join me today for the message. It really does help to have all of us together and to share this message. And for those of you who watch it on the replay, thank you so much for adding your energy and your awareness and for holding the light, for embarking on this together, because there is clearly work to be done and we have to be embodied to do it. It has to be us. It has to be us that is doing this, that is trying. And the ultimate goal, like they said, is to alter the collective consciousness, to shift humanity into this ascension, right? So that's literally what we are trying to do. So, all right, you guys, thank you so much for joining me. Sending you guys lots of love, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend. I'll see you next Friday live. Bye, you guys.